My name is Brian Toney, organizer of the Dallas Housing Coalition, and we're recording today in beautiful Uptown Dallas at White Rhino Coffee. Today we're hosting the 35th installment of our Housing for All webinar series, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it's truly big enough for everyone. We hope you've been enjoying these impactful one-on-one conversations with DHC members and other community leaders who are Dallas's strongest advocates for keeping Dallas affordable. We're joined by Renae Perry, an innovative nonprofit leader committed to changing the narrative on aging, amplifying voices, and championing equity and inclusion. Since 2011, she has served as the Chief Operating Officer of the Senior Source, where she leads strategic management and oversees programs that uplift and protect older adults. Through her leadership, the Senior Source has successfully advocated for people's rights as they age and spearheaded initiatives in alignment with the organization's mission. Renae holds a master's degree in social work from the University of Texas at Arlington, go Mavs, and a bachelor's degree in social work from Howard Payne University. And I'm sorry I don't know their mascot, but welcome to the show, Renae.
Thank you. Well, so we would be saying Stingham Jackets, the Yellow Jackets. So thank
Awesome.
you. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. So let's start off with you just sharing a little bit more about the Senior Source and how you've seen affordable housing impact the aging population in Dallas.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks so much for having me on this show. I feel like I'm in very good, very capable hands if this is the 35th show. So this is a well-oiled machine. So the Senior Source is a nonprofit local organization here in Dallas. We serve about 25,000 older adults and families caring for aging loved ones each year, and really are focused on emotional well-being and financial well-being for older adults. And so, housing certainly factors into both someone's emotional well-being and their financial well-being. And so we want to make sure that folks are able to age with dignity, that they have access to the resources and services they need, and that they have financial security and safety as they age. So a lot of different programs working with folks around that financial security piece and in supporting older adults. In Dallas alone, older adults are growing 5 times faster than any other age population, and they're the only group where the poverty rate is actually increasing. And so we're seeing that increased demand for service and want to support older adults really well with all facets of their life.
Yeah, so it's a two-pronged problem. We have the most increasing population, at the same time the fastest rate of people falling into poverty, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you've done advocacy work on their behalf. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the Senior Affairs Commission at the city, and how else y'all advocate for seniors' housing rights.
Sure, thank you. Well, I think for older adults, the conversation around housing can be complex. Most older adults want to age in place. They want to age in their home, and they're also on a fixed income, right? And so we want to support and advocate for them to be able to age in their homes, age safely with the tools they needed in that home. As someone ages, there may be things like grab bars or a wheelchair ramp or things like that that can support being able to age and continue living in the home that for many of them they've lived in for a long time. The Senior Affairs Commission is made up of members appointed by City of Dallas City Council members, and their focus is really on older adults, looking at the data, supporting and providing information to the City Council on older adult issues. And so in the report that they had last year, they really looked at the number of seniors in the community and how many people are on a very fixed income. So what they found was that 30,000 older adults in the city of Dallas are living on $1,000 or less per month. Now, you think about that in terms of housing, options are incredibly limited, right? I mean, if you
Average
think
rent in
about
Dallas is
the rent,
$1,500. Yeah.
I mean, you're starting the month already in a deficit. And so, we see people coming in who are not homeowners, who are renting, and they're spending the bulk of their income on housing, and it's not sustainable. They're not able to continue. And so we want to support that segment of the aging population. We want to be able to share, the subsidized housing options that are available. I will say there aren't many, and there are a long waiting list. And so, sometimes it's thinking about what other options exist for people who are in their own home. Often what forces them out is the needed repairs. Many of them live in homes that are older. And if you're on a fixed income, you're not necessarily able to make some of the repairs that are needed. And so one of our advocacy efforts is really focused on home repair. And the city of Dallas did add $1.7 million to a home repair program for seniors, not this past budget year, but the prior one. And so like that's something that can be incredibly helpful. If we can keep people living in their homes longer, then they're better off, the community is better off, and then those very finite number of subsidized housing units that are available can go to people where there aren't other options for them.
Yeah, so we have to also preserve the existing housing that we do have, and our housing stock in Dallas is also, like you said, people who lived here for generations could be 100-year-old homes that, one HVAC unit fails and all of a sudden that person is at risk of being displaced or at worst, even homeless.
Absolutely.
Are there any other, unique challenges or trends you've seen for older adults finding, securing housing? Like you mentioned there's a finite number of subsidized units. Like how many calls are y'all getting where it's like, I need a home, I can't afford to live here anymore? What's that been like in the last few years?
Well, it's certainly increased. And then oftentimes we get, calls where it's not just that they need housing. There are other needs as well. And in some cases, we'll see people who have been the victim of frauds and scams. So maybe funding that they did have that could have helped cover costs for housing, we now have to look at other options because of that fraud or scam that has occurred. Or health declines that have caused them to think about, additional challenges within their home and how to be safe at home. I think nationally we're seeing a trend where there's more intergenerational families living together. And so we've certainly seen, as people are exploring their options, moving in with family members, so, having that more multi-generational experience that maybe was more reminiscent of, 50 years ago or so. So that's certainly been one thing. And when we work with someone, we want to look at what their financial picture looks like. We want to make sure that if they're eligible for benefits, that they're getting all of the benefits that they're eligible for, because that factors into how much money they have available each month to put towards rent. So we want to make sure they're getting all of those benefits. We want to make sure, I think for some people, it's not knowing what resources exist. So much of our world is shared through technology. I mean, look at us and sharing information, but if you do not have access to Wi-Fi, or you don't have access to a laptop, or you don't have the technology skills, then you don't have access to that information. And so I think, that also plays into it when someone reaches out to us. We want to make them aware of the resources that exist, like the home repair program at the City of Dallas, like some of the other services that exist.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing out those other gaps. Like technology and just the information that people need to access these programs, beyond just, hopefully having more housing units and making these programs more well funded. Like, $1.7 million can only go so far from the city. So you have to work with other partners along the way.
And it went really, it goes incredibly quickly when they, certainly get many more applications than what they're able to provide assistance for.
And that's what I think an important role that the Dallas Housing Coalition would like to play in, connecting partners, amplifying, the voices of older adults and the people you serve. AARP's, has been active. People are oftentimes familiar with AARP, but I think we could do a better job of engaging seniors in that conversation. Like, are there any best practices that you could share on how we can get our housing policies and programs to better meet their needs?
So, I think it starts with awareness and a recognition that older adults are an incredibly important, vibrant part of our community and our population. Something interesting tends to happen as we age. We become a little more invisible. And just as a society, we are not focused on aging. People don't want to talk about getting older. People don't want to talk about that aging process. I mean, look at all of the anti-aging products that we have out there. So culturally, this is not a high priority. Only like 2% of philanthropy dollars go to support aging causes. And yet we have this growing, incredibly large group within this population cohort. So like 10,000 people are turning 65 every single day in our country. And so that we need, I think, a greater awareness just overall that older adults have a seat at the table, that their voice is heard, our voice is heard. And so I think once that begins to occur, then you see the gaps and you begin to see, oh, wait, is there someone representing the older adult perspective here? And making sure that considerations around transportation barriers or other disability barriers or technology, digital divide, that we can address issues if we're not talking about what they are in the first place. So I think that will go a long way to help. And once we become better educated, we can take those steps to try to reduce some of the barriers.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'd love to, continue to work with y'all. And, I think one of the aging in place solutions we've talked about in housing policy is accessory dwelling units, where people could have a granny flat. Even colloquially, sometimes they're called granny flats or mother-in-law. It's like, are there any like policy solutions you'd like to see advanced in Dallas to help older adults?
I think some of the zoning, things that we've talked about, that you've talked about, could be helpful. I think also better coordination of what the resources that we do have, the subsidized housing that is available, making sure that providers are aware of what that is, making sure that the rental assistance, that's another huge area where people need rental assistance. Is it easily accessible to people who aren't online? And so just that kind of advocacy so that we're sharing the resources that do exist and we're growing the resources that are needed to support this population.
When it comes to like going to City Hall, a lot of those meetings take place during the day. It's not easy to get to. Like, is there a way that we could have more community talks, or either bring City Hall to your residents that you work with, or bring the residents closer to City Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think there's certainly opportunities, and one thing that the Senior Affairs Commission has been doing this past year is having listening sessions. in the different districts at senior centers, or community centers, churches where older adults feel comfortable and are used to going. And so I think anytime you can go out to the community where people are, you're going to get a more genuine response and more authentic answers to some of the questions you may have. And so those listening sessions have been really helpful. People have shared some of their concerns. And so it'll be interesting to see taking all of that feedback back and then having the Senior Affairs Commission be able to share with city council members what those concerns are and those needs, I think hopefully will be helpful. And then, making sure that for the town hall meetings that the city of Dallas holds, that they're in locations, and at times, sometimes they're at night and older adults may not want to drive after dark. So thinking about that there are options available for different populations, because you also want to be accessible to people who are working during the day. And so, I think the answer sometimes is that you've got to have multiple ways and methods to be able to let people share their voice.
Awesome. Like geographically, would you mind just sharing like where y'all's offices are located and where your region, what your coverage is, and where people are most coming to you from, perhaps?
Yeah, so we're on Harry Hines Boulevard. We're at 3910 Harry Hines Boulevard, near Oak Lawn. But we serve the greater Dallas area, primarily Dallas and Collin counties. And so, we have people who call us, we have people who go on to our website, and then we have people who just walk in for assistance. And so we want to just serve all of those folks well. And we typically work with people over the age of 50, and then families who are caring for aging loved ones through our caregiver support services.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And caregivers are another huge part, whether they're professional help or not. I've been reading articles about the sandwich generation, people who are taking care of their adult parents and their children at the same time. Is that the trend you're seeing? And are there any other supports we could be doing for our caregivers?
So I'm so glad that you asked that, and thank you for recognizing the needs of caregivers, because I think that is a group of people that is also growing, and they have very limited time. And so, when we're thinking about how we can serve them and how we can make them aware of resources, we're thinking about what's going to be quick, what's going to be easy, how can we meet them where they are? Because like you said, I mean, they're pulled between children and obligations at work, and then the increasing needs of their loved ones. And so one of the messages that we always try to get across is we can start where you are and support you. It's always so much better, though, if people can plan ahead and anticipate what their needs are going to be, and talk with family members before there's a crisis. We call it having the other talk. And so, for that adult child to kind of take that responsibility to really talk about their parents or loved ones' wishes and desires, and that can relate to where they want to live, how do they want to age, do they anticipate staying in that home, or do they need to look at other options? And then, how does cost factor into that?
Yeah, no, it's never. I think planning ahead is a great tip for anybody sitting at home watching this, that they can start having those conversations. That financial education and awareness, I'm sure, is extremely important in addition to those other responsibilities and obligations you mentioned.
Absolutely. One of the things our Elder Financial Safety Center team will do, and that's a coalition or a collaboration between the Senior Source and the Dallas County District Attorney's Office and the Dallas County Probate Courts. And so they're really looking at financial security, financial safety for older adults, and can talk through if you're planning for retirement or you're planning for your future, what do you need to know? how do you need to address that, and how do you need to make decisions that are going to keep you in secure, safe housing, allow you to meet your healthcare needs, meet your your other needs, and have a quality of life that you would want.
Yeah, well, thank you. I wasn't aware of those resources, so hopefully people will start looking y'all up too and take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Are there other topics we haven't covered or initiatives that the Senior Source is working on you'd like to discuss or share?
Yeah, so just a couple things really quickly. One, with the state legislative session
Mm, yeah,
happening right now, we are also involved in some public policy advocacy issues at the state level for the protections and benefits for older adults around,
yeah,
for folks who are not in their home, if they're in a nursing home or an assisted living facility, there are some possible legislation that could improve the quality of life for those older adults, as well as increasing the protections around frauds and scams. I mean, that truly can be devastating for an older adult and their family. And so we're hoping to have some success in this session around increasing the protections for victims of elder financial abuse. Real estate fraud is another big issue where you may not even know that your title's been stolen. So
yeah. That heirs
advocacy efforts,
property. Yeah,
yes, a lot of advocacy efforts, in addition to the direct one-on-one work we're doing to support older adults every day.
awesome. Thank you for your work, and yeah, good point about the state ledge ongoing. I know Voice West has a bill that is about heirs property. So like when people pass away and their deeds are getting sometimes split up between multiple of their children, and back taxes pile up, and then someone brings them a cash offer, and they can sue for take people's property away even. And
Yeah,
we certainly want to avoid that and keep generational wealth in that property in the family as much as possible. I've heard
it,
everything like, crypto
yeah,
fraud and all kinds of, you know, tomfoolery. Unfortunately.
yes. I mean, and every time, you think you get the message out about one type of scam, something else pops up. There's always something new. And it's so disheartening that older adults are specifically targeted for all of these different types of frauds and scams. And like, you literally have to be on top of your game with your very best thinking every moment of the day. And with AI now, you can't trust what you hear, you can't trust what you see. You have to just be so incredibly cautious all the time. And that's hard. But unfortunately, the reality is that if you're not, the consequences can be really, really devastating.
Thank you. That's my favorite question to ask everyone at the end of the webinar is how can we continue to support the work of the Senior Source and get involved in your mission moving forward?
Oh, well, thank you. So people can go to our website, theseniorsource.org, and we've got a lot of educational events. We've got lots of different ways that people can get involved to volunteer. There are volunteer opportunities to support older adults. So many different ways to get involved, and we would love to visit more. And always feel like when we're talking to somebody who cares about older adults and aging issues, that those are our people. That's what we care about. And so it's always great to talk with others who also share that commitment. So thank
No.
you for letting me give that plug.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for all your work and what you're doing. That we don't want there to be invisible generations. We don't want, our people of all ages, all stages of life, all income levels deserve access to housing, and that's what we're advocating for, and both the creation and preservation of those housing options. So giving people that dignity of choice and aging gracefully. Your membership in our coalition means a lot, and I look forward
Wow.
to continuing to work together.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm so appreciative of what you've done with the Dallas Housing Coalition. I mean,
Thank
so
you.
incredibly visible and so like you've got a great group of organizations and members, and so you're doing incredible work, and we're so happy to be part of that, and thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Before we let our audience go today, I'd just like to remind them that they can continue to watch this series on all our social media channels, get involved with the Housing for All webinar series, or go to our website, dallashousingcoalition.com, to learn more about our member organizations like the Senior Source and join the coalition if they're not already a member. We're having our next event on parking reform Tuesday, February 4th at 6 p.m. at CWA Local. Off of Bryan Street and Washington Avenue. So we'd love to see people in person, and that's also going to be a hybrid event. So even your residents, Renae, feel free to push it out to y'all's network too, and people can learn about why parking adds costs to people's rents and housing. And for many people, we want more walkable cities, want more public transit. A lot of people don't own cars, including myself. So that has led to too much parking in many parts of Dallas. So we don't need those requirements. That's my one quick plug on parking. We'll still have parking get built and loading and drop off zones and things like that. But that brings our 35th episode of the Housing for All webinar series to a close, where we discuss whether Dallas is big and if it is truly big enough for everyone. Thank you all for watching and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Perfect.